everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This is my reading week from the 20th until the 26th of May. I read 6 things this week and I'm going to talk to you about them. The first one is a book that Izzy told me that I needed to read. It is called The Neutral Zone by Teagan Hunter. It is part of the Carolina Comets series, and I have read the book in the series that comes just before this one, but none of the other ones because why would I read anything in order? This is a hockey romance, but it is a very different hockey romance to what many of the others are in terms of the types of characters that we see. And I'm so glad Izzy made me read it because I had just the best time. It was just like a very soft, sweet hockey romance because the hero in this is a hockey player, but he doesn't like going out. He lives at home with his cat, so he's a cat dad, and he's just very awkward at times, but he falls for a local baker, and unbeknownst to her, he knows her secret, and that is that she has a MyFans account, which, read between the lines here, that she uses to make extra money on the side, which is perfect for him because he is a voyeur and he has been burnt by that with previous girlfriends. He spends a lot of the book trying to figure out how to tell her that he knows because he wants to be with her and she really likes him. And of course, when it all comes out, there is a very natural issue because he has been lying to her, but the way that they work it out is great, and the heroine in the story just has the best grand gesture scene. Quite often it's the guys that have to do the grand gesture, but in this case, she does it, and it's hilarious. The really cool thing about this series though is that all of the characters are just a little bit different and quirky, particularly the heroines. Like, they don't fit that stereotypical hockey girlfriend / wife kind of role, and I really do want to go back and read more books in the series because they just sound like they're so much fun and they're just very light, easy reads. So highly recommend this one. I also read Asher by Samantha Whiskey, which is Billionaire's Game Book 1. This is, again, a hockey romance, but instead of a hockey player, we have the owner of the hockey team. He works really hard, he has built his business from the ground up, and he now owns a hockey team. And he loses a bet with some friends who have this regular card game where they bet things of importance to them, and he has to allow a romance author to shadow him for a month. And it was just a really unique way to frame a hockey romance because the romance author, she's not trying to write a hockey romance, she's trying to write a billionaire romance. So she's following him because he's a billionaire. For a month, she lives his routine. So she gets up when he gets up, she follows him around. And at first, you know, Asher doesn't have a huge amount of respect for her as a romance author, but it's really funny because he starts to read what she's writing and he just becomes so intrigued. It is super steamy. It was a lot of fun. I really liked these characters and how they tried to figure out how they fit together with this crazy dynamic. And alongside that, you have the background of hockey. It was kind of like the best of everything. It also has the best jealous jersey moment because she goes to a couple of the games and she wears the players' jerseys and he is just fuming the entire time. It's like, she needs an owner's jersey. And it was just so much fun. Like, Izzy and I have talked about it. Those scenes are great in hockey romances because they often end in some really funny conversations and results and reactions from the characters. This one was really funny. I also read The Isle of the Gods by Amie Kaufman, which is a young adult fantasy story, and this was a review copy sent to me by Alan and Unwin. This is a fantasy world where there were a family of gods who eventually went to war with one another. And so the gods have disappeared from the world, but the people who followed them haven't stopped believing in them. And 2 groups in particular are basically on the brink of war again, despite the fact that their gods are sleeping. And our protagonist, Sally, is the daughter of a sailor. Sailing is in her blood. And when the boat that she's currently crewed on has to take Prince Leander to the Isle of the Gods in order to make a sacrifice to his god in order to prevent this war from happening, she is really skeptical. She doesn't like it, and that is well-founded because all hell breaks loose on the sea. A small group of them end up stranded, having to find their way to the Isle of the Gods in order to make this ritual happen so that everything can be prevented. And of course, nothing goes to plan. So this was really interesting. Like, if you are someone who likes those high seas adventures, magic stories, with a YA setting, this is a really interesting book. I don't know why I thought it was a standalone because it's clearly not, but it was interesting and I'm really glad that I read it. Continuing my trend of review copies, I had Happy Place by Emily Henry. Now, I got a review copy of this on NetGalley and panicked and then kept putting off reading it until I got the physical copy. So I have read it, and say what you will about Emily Henry, I don't think her books are strict romance books, but they are enjoyable and they do have romance plots through them. That's fine by me. I know people don't necessarily like that because they get very heavily marketed as romance and maybe they don't always fit the traditional molds that people would like them to. For me, This was just a really light, easy read in the middle of the week, and I can appreciate it for what it is. This is about Harriet and Wynne, who are a couple, and they go on this holiday every year or every couple of years with their friends who are all coupled up. So there's 6 of them all together. Both of them find themselves on this holiday this year pretending that they are still happy despite the fact that they have been separated. When they get to the vacation, they find out that it will be the last time that they can go on this vacation to this particular place because the house is being sold. And so it's a case of, can they hold it together to keep their friends happy without everything bubbling over? And it is a second chance romance between Harriet and Wynne as they try and figure out, one, where they went wrong and what they need to do in order to fix where they're currently at, if they even want to do that. So there's forced proximity, there is miscommunication coming out of the pores of these pages. So if you don't like that, then you're probably not going to enjoy the book. But I really liked it for the friendship dynamics, because these are characters who have been friends for many years, but they're all growing up and all of their lives are changing, and some of them aren't able to accept that, and to accept that maybe their friendship dynamic has changed and it's grown, and maybe the things that were important to them in college are not necessarily important to them now. And I think that is a real part of the millennial anxiety sphere, and that was represented really well on page. Content warnings in this one though for mention of death of a parent. It's off page, but it is mentioned. There is also a pregnancy mentioned on page, so just be aware of that. And then during the week, I was sent another book from Piatkes or Hachette, I think, sent it to me. And that was The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. And I was so excited to get this because I loved The Soulmate Equation. And this is sort of the follow-up to it. The follow-up that they never intended to write, but everyone loved the main character's best friend from the first book. And that is Fizzy. She is a romance author. She is absolutely delightful. She's a little chaotic bundle of joy in this book, and I love her to death. But at the start of this story, she's kind of lost her writing mojo. She has had a realization that has kind of stopped her in her tracks with regards to romance and how she views romance in her life, and the fact that maybe she hasn't been living up to everything that she preaches to other people, and so that kind of just frazzles her a little bit. And then she is approached by a marine documentary director who has been tasked with creating a reality dating TV series. And he doesn't want to do the job because he's a documentarian and he hates and he's not at all impressed by reality TV. But it's this or be out of a job, and he's a single dad. He knows that if he wants to pursue what he really wants to pursue, if he doesn't do this particular job, he might have to travel and be away from his daughter for long periods of time. And so he kind of comes up with this idea centered around Fizzy, who is a romance author. And when he approaches her, they have this really bad first meeting, and they kind of have to grow to understand each other throughout the first part of the book, which is great. But one of the funniest things in the story is before she agrees to be the heroine on this show, she sets out some ground rules or some expectations and doesn't expect him to meet it. She expects he's going to just say, no, you're too hard. That's too much work. We'll find someone else. She gives him a list of tropes for the guys or the heroes on the reality TV show, and he has to find things like the cinnamon roll and the vampire and the tattooed bad boy. And I just like, this book is a love letter to romance readers and romance authors. There's just so much in here. It's very much, this is everything that we love about the romance genre. We're going to throw it in here because we have a romance author as a main character, so we can do that. And I like that because it was just fun and easy to read. And I just smiled a lot while reading it. Something else that I loved in this book is that our hero Connor has a really fantastic relationship with his ex-wife, and they co-parent beautifully. The daughter is adorable, but I will content warning in this one that the hero imploded his relationship by cheating on his wife. And he talks very frankly about it. He's very open and honest about it in the story. And the one thing that I appreciated about that particular storyline, because I know that's not for everyone and quite often that's a big hard no for me, is how he talked about it, the fact that he was open about it, but also it explored what it takes to come back from that and to gain the trust of people around you. I don't think that is the part that is covered in romance storylines often. It's just the cheating that happens. The cheating obviously happens way before anything in this book starts. It's like been 10 years since that happened. If we're going to see character growth, I want to see character growth. And I think that's what we got in this book. And the last book that I read this week was another arc that I got from NetGalley. It is called Time to Shine by Rachel Reid. It is a hockey romance. It is an hockey romance. And I think it's the start of a new series that she's writing. I know her Game Changer series is really, really popular. I haven't read that yet. While I was flicking through some of the reviews that people had already left for this book, they said this book just made you feel really positive and great by the end of it. And that's kind of what I needed at the end of the week. This is about Landon, who is a goalie from the AHL who is called up to play for the NHL because one of the goalies is out injured. He's never had the opportunity before. It's a big step up. And he is a very quiet, introverted person. He doesn't really build friendships really easily. And so he comes to the team and is immediately welcomed by Casey, who is one of the wingers. He is very, very high energy. He has kind of taken on this persona because he's been told his whole life that he's not smart, so he just plays into that. But he is the life of the party, and he is incredibly emotionally intelligent. He reads people really well, and he just tries to make everyone feel welcome and feel part of the team. Sometimes to the chagrin of the rest of his teammates, because they often describe him as being annoying, he never stops talking, all of that. But he's an absolute cinnamon roll of a character. And when Landon ends up staying with the team for longer than expected, Casey offers to let him room with him at his house because he's bought this huge ginormous place because he's got a lot of money and he is like hockey royalty. But as it turns out, he is really afraid of being on his own and kind of afraid of the dark. And now that he's got this big place, he's just set himself up for this. So he offers Landon a place, one, because he's a nice guy, but also because it will help ease some of his anxiety. And the two end up developing this friendship and bromance and then a relationship. And it's really cool because Casey is very much unafraid of his sexuality. He's very out there. He's out and proud to the team. Landon just really doesn't know himself. He is coded as demisexual on the page, and he has never really been in a relationship with anyone because he's never really felt a connection with someone enough to be in a relationship. And so he explores that with Casey, and it's just adorable. Like, I loved this book so much, and I can't wait to see what Rachel Reid does with the rest of the series. So this doesn't come out until September. I forgot to say that at the start, but it was great. I loved it, and I had a really fun time. That said, I will say that there is a content warning in this book for the death of a sibling that happened historically off page, but it is mentioned quite a bit because one of the characters is still dealing with that, and his family is still dealing with that, and his relationship with his family is very complicated because of everything that happened. And it added this sort of poignancy to the storyline as all of these characters are figuring themselves out. And I appreciated it. It also is technically a Christmas romance. It does take place over Christmas/New Year, so there is that element of it in there. Otherwise, just a really, really fun read. All right, so those are all the books that I have read in the last 7 days. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have read any of them or if you're planning on picking them up. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.